It is interesting that we celebrate Christ the King of the universe on the very last Sunday of the liturgical year. One would think, because it's a solemnity and its importance, it would be celebrated perhaps toward the beginning of the year. And yet, we realize that the end is merely the bridge. Next weekend, we begin a new liturgical year with the first Sunday of Advent. But what about the bridge? Pilate is confused. Are you a king? Are you not a king? I just deal in what I see. And Jesus is trying to explain, even to Pilate, that even the highest exalted title at the time, king, in other words, you give your absolute oath and allegiance to the king, regardless. Because if you don't, well, you remember Queen of Hearts and all that good stuff. Don't want to go there. But really, what is it to honor Christ as King of the universe? Honoring Christ as the head of the body, the church, you and I. How do we honor him on a daily basis? It's far beyond what we can comprehend or understand in one sense. Because we realize that even higher title than king is he is the Son of God. No other title is higher than that. And so as the one who is the head of the body, he goes on before us. Even those that understood monarchies realized if the king went on to a different campaign or something, nobody fell apart. They all knew exactly what they had to do. They were all well trained, and they followed his lead. Are we that well trained, and do we follow the lead of Christ as King of the universe? The world constantly tries to make us look elsewhere, constantly tries to put down the Christian faith. Look around. It's there. Look at it for what it is. See it for its own reality. And be the countercultural sign. Be the sign of Christ. Be the sign of life. Be the sign of mercy, compassion, and healing. Pilate could not understand this because it wasn't his perspective. We understand the perspective of our Christian faith. More and more each day, in prayer, reflection, in our education, we come to know who Christ is and what is required of us as members of the one body. Across the ages of time, from the call of the first disciples to you and I and those who will follow after us, those who will come to follow after us and know Christ in many different ways, but primarily how we live our faith, how well we live up to what we say we believe. It is not an easy task. It never has been, and it never will be. We are fortunate to understand our own calling. At baptism, we are anointed just as Christ was priest, prophet, and king. So we too were anointed that same way. And the aspect of priest, to give worship, to give thanks to Almighty God. And that is why we're gathered here at this moment in time. As prophet, to speak out in the name of Christ, on behalf of Christ, to challenge the world in every age and in every generation to be better. Do not give in or give up. Do not merely conform yourself to this world, but be transformed within it by the grace of God. And finally, king, not to lord it over someone else, but to simply lead others to Christ. For that is true kingship. A true king does not say, worship me constantly. A true king does not say, you have no identity, or just simply a reflection of myself. But it is a choice. God gave us that free will. And so we have chosen to follow Christ. We have chosen to be that mirror image of his mercy, healing, and compassion. Definitely wouldn't be our first choices as human beings. But as Christians, it becomes the only choice. And so we realize that Christ, as a king, is so much more than that. We realize that as the head of the body, he has gone before us to prepare the way for all eternity for each one of us. And while we are here, while we are given the grace and blessing of each new day, we continue to live the example of Christ. And then in Matthew's gospel, as we hear those words of the final judgment of the sheep and the goats, notice everyone is surprised. What do you mean we didn't do what you wanted us to do? Well, you did what you wanted to do. What do you mean we did what you wanted? We just did what we knew was right. What you taught us, the example you gave us, that's all we did. And for that you are blessed. Enter into the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world. We celebrate a unique king, one who cannot be confined by the directives, dictates, or definitions of this life. We follow Christ, the King of the universe, but more than that, we follow the Son of God. We are his people now and forever.